Hi, everybody, and welcome to our 9th panel on the Future of Information Processing event series. My name is Dimitria Lee, and I'm part of the German Informatics Society, which is helping IFIP celebrate its 60th anniversary this year by presenting a series of events that will look at what the future may hold for ICT. Our moderator today is Stephen Furnell. Steve is the chair of Technical Committee 11 on Security and Privacy within IFIP and a professor of cybersecurity at the University of Nottingham. He is also an honorary professor with Nelson Mandela University in South Africa and adjunct professor with Edith Cowan University in Western Australia. His research interests include usability of security and privacy, security management and culture, and technologies for user authentication and intrusion detection. He has authored over 340 papers in refereed international journals and conference proceedings, as well as various books, book chapters, and industry reports. Steve is also a board member of the Chartered Institute of Information Security and a member of the steering group for the Cybersecurity Body of Knowledge Project, CyBOK. And with that, I would like to hand moderation over to him. Hi, Steve.
Okay, thanks very much, Dimitra. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this session today. So, yeah, basically, we're talking about cybersecurity skills today. And the session's going to examine this sort of multi-dimensional challenge, as we called it in the description of the session. Yeah, I mean, basically, as you're well aware, I'm sure, there's an international, global, recognized need for cybersecurity skills. But one of the fundamental problems that we face is that these skills are in short supply. And that's got a resulting recruitment issue for employers, and also a challenge for the profession more generally to provide what we need. So as an example of this, just one of the many example stats you might find, the latest cybersecurity workforce study from ISSA estimates that there are about, in the profession, 4.19 million cybersecurity professionals worldwide, actually an increase of 700,000 compared to the previous year. But nonetheless, there is still a cybersecurity workforce gap. Now, on the positive side, that's reduced actually from 3.12 million last year down to just 2.72 million now. But nonetheless, of course, that's still a remaining gap that's about 2/3 the size of the current workforce. So we've still got some ground to make up there. A further underlying challenge is that cybersecurity itself actually encompasses a very broad range of skills. And so there's different areas of knowledge, different areas of experience and expertise, and different skill sets that we need for different roles. And this can cause knock-on challenges for understanding the skills landscape, and also how particular skills are matched to the needs that we may have within organizations. So all of this gives us a bit of a landscape against which we can have our panel today. We're going to consider these issues. We're going to consider it from the perspective that the academic qualifications can play, industry certifications, and also the need for professional standards. And all of these have a role in contributing towards the solution. So to help us do this, because I'm not going to talk for all this time, I'm delighted to welcome 4 distinguished and informed guests to be your experts for the session. So what I'm going to do shortly is hand over to each of them in turn, and I'll introduce them properly. But we've got 4 people. We've got Jeff Kroom from IBM, who's going to represent our industry perspective as an employer, for example. We've got Matt Bishop from UC Davis, addressing the academic perspective. We've got Sanjana Mehta from ISSA, who's going to talk about the industry certification perspective, and Amanda Finch from the Chartered Institute of Information Security, representing the professional standards perspective and the professional body perspective, if you like. So what I'm going to do, as I say, is hand over to each of these in turn, beginning with Jeff in a moment. But you will, as the audience, have a chance to have your say and get involved as we go through the session. So each of the panelists is going to give us a 5-minute or so perspective and opinion on the topic from I say, their perspective. And then we'll move into the more general Q&A part, where you can use the Q&A features here within Zoom to pose your questions. I've also got some questions that I'll pose to the panelists to get us underway. And we'll also have some polls where we can get your feedback at different points in the proceedings. Okay, so without further ado then, It's time for handing over to the first panelist, and that's going to be Jeff. So Jeff is a distinguished engineer, master inventor, and chief technology officer for IBM Security Americas, and he's got 39 years of experience in the IT industry. He doesn't look that old. He has a PhD in cybersecurity, and he serves as an adjunct professor at NC State University, and he's a member of IBM's Academy of Technology. He holds a CISP and an ISSA, professional IT security certifications, and he's also a distinguished chief IT architect from the Open Group. So without any further ado, Jeff, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Steve. And it's an honor to be here, especially to be introduced by my PhD advisor and professor. So thank you for all your help on that, Steve. So yes, I've been with IBM for what seems like 1,000 years now. And thank you for the kind words about my not appearing to be so old. I'll just tell you, my secret is formaldehyde. So lots and lots of formaldehyde. But anyway, what I want to share with you, and Steve started off talking about some of the numbers that are out there. This is actually a website, CyberSeek, that I found, I just ran across recently as a result of some work I'm doing with North Carolina State University, where, as Steve mentioned, I'm also an adjunct professor. And we're doing some work in this particular space in trying to fill the cybersecurity gap. IBM's CEO, Arvind Krishna, has talked recently about this gap. And of course, IBM is focused on a lot of different areas. So cybersecurity is one of them, not the only one. But to get the attention at that level means this is a particularly difficult problem. Now, I know what I'm showing you here are US numbers. So I do that with the recognition that not all of you are from the US, but I use this for illustration purposes, because I think in general, what I'll show you here is not so different as we move around the world. But this is an interactive map where you can go and look, like for instance, here where I am. In North Carolina, 21,000 job openings in the cybersecurity space. And you can see the heat map then that shows you which states have more or less job openings. And you can see this updated. This I thought was particularly interesting. If you look at what the workforce of cybersecurity professionals is in the US, it's about 1 million, roughly. But if you look at the gap, the number of jobs that still need to be filled, it's more than half that number. It's an astonishing number, I think, when you sit back and think about that. As many people as we have working in the field, take that number in half, and we need at least that many more, is what we're looking at. So again, very low supply. That's really great if you're someone in this space. And so the students that I teach at North Carolina State University, I keep telling them, you're picking the right field. You want to focus in this area, because there's a lot that can be done here. Some other interesting things, some numbers that I find useful in looking at this, because there's a lot of focus on certifications. And so here are the certifications that people hold in general. And so it's interesting to see, okay, here's Security Plus. It's not surprising that that might be the case, because that's a more entry-level cert. But then if you look at what the job market is asking for, number one, they're looking for CISSP. So and of course, that's not surprising also, given the experience requirement. So I think this is all a good resource to have in mind. And I'll point you to one other thing that we're looking at. I recently shared this with the director that I work for at IBM to take a look at, here are the different roles that we have here. And you can look at these and see, if I'm starting at this role, then what could it lead to? Or look at it the other way around. If this is where I want to be, or this is where I want to be, what would be the jobs that would lead me into those kinds of things? And so this, for instance, is what I do in my day job, is cybersecurity architect. And you can see here information. So folks, if you're trying to motivate people, they can look right here very quickly and see, okay, you can see roughly, what the salaries are expected to be, what the job openings are like. And I think also interestingly, the skills that are involved. So again, if I look at something like a cybersecurity architect, again, my role, it's not surprising that there's a large number of certifications that can feed into that, and a large number of skills that could be required to do that, a broad understanding of these kinds of things. Versus Some of the other job descriptions here, some of these require a wide range of skills, some less depth in some of those skills. So I think this is a useful tool, and that's the reason I share it, is that I think we can use this to help understand what our requirements are, to help understand the folks that we're trying to recruit, and to help motivate them to, in fact, pursue these jobs. I would also say that one of the other things that I emphasize with people that I mentor that are early in their careers is that you need to have the technical skills. Those are the table stakes everyone needs to be able to have. But if you're going to get ahead in the world, in your career, it's other things that also will come into play. And some of those things are the ability to communicate well in written, in verbal communications, be able to advocate for your point of view, have a point of view in the first place, of course, then be able to advocate for that, find your own voice in this, and be able to speak up, because the good organizations that are growing are going to want to hear ideas, and they're going to want fresh ideas. So come in with those fresh ideas. So that's I'll stop with that, and we'll have a chance to have more discussion throughout.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Very useful reference point, that CyberSeek thing. Very interesting the way that it shows things fitting together, and you've got various useful indicators there as you draw attention to. So thank you for that. And folks, if you've not seen that before, very much encourage you to go and explore it a bit further. Okay, so we will move on to our next panelist. Introducing him properly is Matt Bishop from UC Davis. So Matt received his PhD in computer science from Purdue University back in 1984, where he specialized in computer security. And as I say, he's now a faculty member at the Department of Computer Science at University of California at Davis. His main research area is the analysis of vulnerabilities in computer systems, and he's also active in information security education. Amongst the things he did there was to lead the joint task force that developed the CSEC 2017 cybersecurity curricula guidelines. And if that's not something you've encountered, go and Google that one, because that's certainly worth a look. The second edition of his textbook, something else that's worth a look, Computer Security, Art and Science, was published in November 2018 by Addison Wesley Professional. And Matt teaches introductory programming, software engineering, operating systems, and, well, perhaps, of course, a bit of cybersecurity as well. So, Matt, over to you for your perspective on the topic.
Thank you for this very kind introduction, Steve. I've been an academic. I've been teaching computer security since 1987, and the field has changed quite a bit since then, as has the material that's being taught and how it's being taught. The education that I do has two foci. The first one is the more academic, that focuses on principles. How do you apply principles in certain situations? How do you design and build systems that are secure? How do you defend against attackers? Things like that. And then there's also a training component where you focus on specific systems or specific environments in specific situations. Now, often these are seen as completely separate things, but in reality, the best cybersecurity people, the best education is really to learn both together. And that way you can apply principles when you go to one company, you know how the training works. And then you can switch, if you go to another company, or the company you're with switches technology, your learning time will be much, much quicker than if you simply focused on one particular system. Another aspect to this is that cybersecurity is a huge area, but it's not an independent area. It's really part of other areas such as networking, operating systems, and also social things, political things, legal things, and so forth. So the most effective way to teach this, I believe, is to not just have a separate program, but integrate the material into other classes as well. So you can have a cybersecurity major or cybersecurity program, but you're also taking other technical classes. And I'd like to echo what Jeff said a couple of minutes ago. The stakes for the table stakes are the technical, but knowing how to communicate and knowing about the environment in which you apply the security is also absolutely critical. And that brings up another topic. I've often wondered what we mean by cybersecurity experts or skills shortage, because there's a huge technical shortage, but there's also a shortage of people in other fields who understand how cybersecurity works, what its goals are and what its limits are. And we often see this when someone is told, okay, you're hired, secure the system. Well, the first question is, what do you mean by secure? Second question is, what is the system? Things like that. So, for example, the legal knowledge that a lawyer would need different knowledge of cybersecurity than someone who's highly technical, than someone who's an executive and so forth, because the lawyer doesn't need to know the detail, at least typically doesn't need to know the details of how an operating system works. Whereas a cybersecurity specialist who deals in the technical realm does need to know that. So my point here is that the curricula has to be flexible. There's not one rigid cybersecurity curriculum, know this and you're an expert. That, by the way, is how we designed CSEC 2017, so that you could pick and choose the parts of the curricular guidelines. It's guidelines, not a curriculum, that most meet your particular needs. The other thing too is academia is very much influenced by industry, by government, by the forces that are going on in the external world. And it's not that the principles change. It's not Groucho Marx's famous lines, here are my principles, if you don't like them, I've got others. It's simply that the way they're applied and the way they're taught and the way they're examined does change. And we saw this quite a bit because until about 2000, 2002, I'd say, cybersecurity as an academic discipline was basically seen as, well, you know, it's very applied. It's not really that interesting because it's just an application. And that's changed by the way, the view was wrong then, but that's changed now, and cybersecurity is very much in the mainstream as an academic discipline of its own. But to wrap this up, the history of cybersecurity teaching and education has been a fairly long one. It's gone through various phases, but the key is that the educators and the academics are trying to trying to produce people who either can do cybersecurity, apply their cybersecurity expertise in different areas, or who can teach others as well. Because one of the functions of academia is to teach and to bring about the next generation of teachers, faculty, and so forth. And on that note, I think that's, we'll hear a lot more about this as we go along, I'm sure. But I'll turn it back to you, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I absolutely agree. We're very likely to be dipping into that theme a bit further as we go through the panel session. So moving us on to our next panelist, it's Sanjana Mehta from ISSA, where she's the advocacy director for them. She supports their global advocacy strategy and also operates as a lead advocate in advancing their public policy and their thought leadership goals in the UK. Sanjana holds a PhD in education and psychology from the University of Cambridge, and she's got 20 years of experience in the education sector, working in a variety of roles such as research, program management, product development, and policy. So Sanjana, the floor is yours to give us your perspective on this theme.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's great to be part of this panel, and I really enjoyed the insights from Jeff and Matt, and looking forward to Amanda's presentation also. And hello to everyone in the audience. So for those of you who don't know about ISSA, I'd like to begin with a quick introduction to the organization, and then I'm going to make a case for where and how cybersecurity certifications fit within the ecosystem. So ISSA is the world's largest association of certified cybersecurity practitioners. We have over 160,000 members across a very wide range of roles, from the coalface of cybersecurity operations through to strategic leadership. So individuals like Jeff, who are senior leaders within their organizations, also are members. Our members work in a range of sectors and help to protect their organization's critical assets. Now, why did ISSA Squared come to be? So about 30 years ago, the organization's founders saw a need for standardization in the sector. Whilst it's acknowledged that there are a myriad of routes into cybersecurity, it's also important to acknowledge that certifications, professional certifications, play a critical role in this ecosystem. Often, when I'm sitting around the table with stakeholders from other parts of the system, and there are kind of discussions around, what is the best route into cybersecurity, or, what is the kind of the most predictable or conventional route into cybersecurity, and there isn't one. I think the point to make is that all of us play an important role, and we all form a part of the journey rather than the whole journey. So with that, I'd just like to share a few thoughts about what role cybersecurity certifications play in that journey. And instead of presenting my own views, I'm going to draw on research that we have done. So this stems from our annual workforce study, where we surveyed nearly 5,000 individuals and asked them for their thoughts on cybersecurity certifications. And the benefits were twofold. There were advantages to the teams in which cybersecurity practitioners were being recruited. There were advantages to the entire organization in which the cybersecurity practitioners were working. So just starting with some benefits to the individual and the teams, we are told that employing certified individuals or supporting their professional development through certifications. So the point I'd like to make is we don't always have to employ certified professionals, but it's very important, obviously, to open up professional development opportunities for them. Now, but the benefits of having these individuals in the team means that they've got stronger knowledge in key cybersecurity areas. They demonstrate increased confidence in the team's handling of security challenges. Very importantly, these individuals stay up to date on the latest security and privacy trends. In addition to creating advantages and opportunities for the team, the advantages of certifications also extend to the entire organization in the following ways. They provide greater confidence in the organization's security strategy and practices. Our respondents told us that they help to increase specialization and expertise in different cybersecurity areas. I think everyone on this panel will agree that cybersecurity is a constantly evolving and changing field. And so in a complex field as cybersecurity, I think it would be risky to assume that, an education received at one point in time, or, one particular type of, having sort of been, let's say, gain knowledge in one type of practice, or having sort of gained one type of skill will be the be and all and end all. So certifications help to ensure that cybersecurity practitioners stay up to date with this evolving field. And finally, it also instills confidence in the organization's ability to conduct secure transactions and processes. And lastly, when we spoke to the respondents in our research who had cybersecurity certifications, they said they saw these certifications as a milestone in their professional growth. They point to earning certifications as achievements and another proof point to employers, peers, and themselves to validate their skills. But I'm sure we'll have a debate around this as the panel progresses. So I'll hand back to you, Steve.
Okay, thanks very much, Sanjana. And last but not least on our panel, we have Amanda Finch, who's the Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of Information Security, or CISEC, or CISEC, or CSEC, depending on how you interpret the acronym. We have variants. Amanda has specialised in information security management since 1991, and over her career, she's been engaged in all aspects of this. And in 2007, it's notable, she was awarded European Chief Information Security Officer of the Year by Secure Computing magazine. And she's still frequently listed as one of the most influential women in the industry. In her current role, she works with industry, government, and academia, assisting all of those sectors in raising the level of competency and education in cybersecurity. And for many years, she's been dedicated to gaining recognition for the discipline and for that to be recognized as a profession. So Amanda, over to you for your opinions on this theme of cybersecurity skills.
That's lovely. Thank you, Steve, for such a lovely introduction. And the good thing about going last is that normally there's less to say, so that's always good as well. I'm going to put some slides up in a second. So thank you to the rest of the panel for giving such great insights, and hopefully I can build on those as well. Right, now, sharing screens. Lovely. So can everybody see my screen? Steve, give me a thumbs up. That's great. Lovely. Okay. See if I can get the thing to work first. Is it not moving? No, it's not moving. Okay. Whilst I'm trying to get that to work, there we go. It's moving now. It's just being a little bit slow. That's brilliant. Right. Well, the point of a professional body, in my opinion, is that we are the glue. I was going to stick up a big tin of glue at that point, and I thought that might sort of just sum it all up. But these are the sort of things that we try to cover as a professional institute. So I'm not going to read through the slide because you can have them afterwards, but it's very much about advancing the profession, producing ethical standards, acting as an authoritative body, but also bringing together all of the different groups. So I just wanted to talk about those different aspects over the next couple of minutes. So one of the things that we feel that we try to do at CSEC is to bring the different groups of people together. So we have three sorts of membership. We have individual members, corporate members, and we work very closely with academia. And Steve is the lead of our academic partnership program. So all of the parts of the community need to come together, and people come through very, very different routes as well. So it's really embracing all of the routes and helping everybody to work together. So we try to have memberships that can reflect the different levels that people have there and to be able to support them in their career journey. So people tend to start either as a student or as an affiliate, and then as they gain more competency, they can work their way through to associate, full member and fellowship levels. But there are also different communities out there as well. We work closely with the NCSE through their CCP program, which is the Certified Cyber Professional program that they produce. But we also work with law enforcement as well through the ICDIP program that we run. And that's working with the cyber digital investigators. And what we've been trying to do there is to bring the two worlds together. So that's where I see the professional body being very much as the glue that is supporting the community and trying to bring the various groups together. I think it's very important for a professional body to be setting standards as well. And we obviously do work in that area so that people understand what standards are out there and their particular level and where they can progress to. So we produce something called the Skills Framework, and it covers all of the wide areas that make up information in cybersecurity. And Jeff, in his presentation, talked about people wanting to progress and understanding where they sit in the community. And I thought that was the most brilliant website, but I'm certainly going to be looking at that one afterwards. So what we've tried to do with the Skills Framework is to go through all of the things that make up being a security professional. And both Matt and Jeff and Sanjana touched on the fact that it's an incredibly broad community and it encompasses an incredibly wide range of skills. Everything through from sort of security management to business continuity, forensics, and everything in between. But it's also about being a professional with professional attitudes, ways of working. We've already touched on the fact that people need to be able to communicate, influence, and teamwork, and all of those softer skills as well. So it's important that a professional body is able to provide standards that people can aspire to and understand where they are in the community. So the next slide just shows how we've approached that particular problem, that we've taken a breakdown from the skills framework slide earlier. It shows the levels of competency from just basic understanding up to being a sort of lead within the area as well. And I've just chosen threat intelligence and assessment and threat modeling as an example from that. But it's standards. Standards are there, and it's very important that people understand them and where they sit. And I think it's also important that a professional body is supporting people in their career journey as well. So what we do is that we run various programs for people, particularly new starters, that we're supporting the apprentice community and those that are leaving academia and going into industry. But it's important that there's a level of support and development for people in the profession after the initial stages. So we spend a lot of time running sessions with subject matter experts so that people can increase their expertise and that really just supports them in their career journey. And similarly, we have accreditation levels that actually reflect that, which I'll come to in a minute. But basically, a professional body should be there to support people within the community and their career journeys. In terms of recognising competence, it's important for a professional body to be able to provide accreditation. We've talked already about the fact that people come from different areas. I fell into security. I didn't duck quick enough when they said we need to set up this function, but it's been a great career and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But people tend to change tracks. Some people come in from IT, some people come in from military backgrounds. It's important that a professional body can support people with their backgrounds and their career journeys and reflect the knowledge and experience that they've already got. So that's why our accreditation systems are agnostic to certifications. We really, really value the certifications. And Sanjana and CISP is, gosh, it's the world leader, isn't it, basically? So it's a fantastic qualification to have, and it's sought very readily by employers. But people might have come up through a particular route and that they may change companies, they may change technologies. So it's important that a professional body's accreditation system can reflect that. And again, bringing in the CCP and the cyber digitals, we align all of the accreditation that those systems provide with our membership levels, so that again, if somebody's achieved a full membership through CCP or ICDIP, that will stay with them throughout their career and they don't lose it just because they've got the certification. I think the other thing that we need to be doing very much as a professional body is attracting people to the profession. And demystifying it as well. And that's again why I love that slide, because it's great to have something graphic. But really, we should be here to attract people to the profession. We should be here to support employers by demystifying the FUD of all of the TLAs that are there. And that we also ought to be encouraging all aspects of society to join the profession and act as an authoritative voice for all of us. And that's me.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard various perspectives from our panel members now. So we've got now, just before we throw the floor over to, well, I'm going to start asking questions. I'll ask some and we'll have some from you. Let's have a poll. Let's give you something to do to be interactive with us on the other end. So, Demetria, can we have the first poll launched, please? And we'll see if the technology works. All right, so there we are. It's popped up. So, hosts and panelists can't vote. How very mean. Okay, so do you feel there's a cybersecurity skills shortage? I'm not allowed an opinion on it, but you are. So, you don't think there's one? Yes, and it relates to technical skills. Yes, relating to non-technical, and yes, relating to both technical and non-technical skills. Give us your opinions.
About half of the people have answered so far.
Okay, we'll give a few more moments to see if the other half can make it as well. Come on, people. Show us you're still with us and you've not walked off to get a tea or a coffee. Okay, what have we got?
14 out of 17, so I think
All right, that'll do. That's a sample. Okay, so nobody thinks there isn't a skill shortage, so that sort of plays to the theme of the panel. And I'm not sure if you can see the results as well. So we've got 13% of our small sample saying yes related to technical skills, 13%, might be one or two people here, relating to non-technical, and the vast majority, 73%, yes, relating to both technical and non-technical skills. So, okay, we do think there's a skill shortage. So that leads us into the first question that I'll pose to the panel. So we've got a top level thing that we think we're short in both technical and non-technical skills. So let's see if we can characterize it a bit more. So we continually hear about this skill shortage business. Do you think it's the case, first panel members? I think, based on what the audience think, we do think there is something. And how would you characterize it? What skills do you think we're short of? And I'm going to put somebody on the spot. I'll ask Jeff first of all.
Sure, Steve.
What do we?
Yeah. I think one of the areas that's going to be really important going forward is the integration of artificial intelligence into cybersecurity. The fact of the matter is we have a skills gap that we'll put it this way. So if we have, 500,000 or 1 million or whatever the number is that we're lacking in terms of people, with current technology, it takes 9 months to create a new human. And then a number of years after that before they're a competent cybersecurity specialist. So the bottom line is we won't be able to train our way out of this. That will be an important part. We're going to need tooling that also helps act as a force multiplier for the skills that we do have on site. So that's why I think artificial intelligence is going to be a big player here. We have to work smarter. We have to do a better job of automation. And if our systems can automate and do the investigations of incidents, I think that's going to put the odds back better on the side of the good guys rather than the bad guys, which is where it's going right now. So that's just one area I'll call out, is that confluence of AI and cyber.
Okay, certainly agree. That's a very topical aspect. And we're certainly seeing a lot more attention towards the, as you say, the intersection of those two areas and how they can, well, be mutually beneficial. Anybody else from the panel got a view on this? Let's call back Matt. We'll go back in order that we've at least recently heard from people. Matt, have you got any thoughts on this one?
Yes, I have to learn how to use the unmute button.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I agree with what Jeff said. If you want to solve the shortage by tomorrow, basically, that's very wishful thinking. It will take quite a while to get people up to speed, to train a generation or a group of people from the start. Now, the shortage is going to remain. The AI is a very good approach to trying to deal with it. One caution, though, is that there's, in addition to a budding science of how do we apply AI to security, there's also a budding science of how do we mess up AI when you apply it to security. And I'm thinking here in particular of adversarial machine learning and also anti-forensics, where a lot of the tools can be tricked into reporting things in such a way that you go in one direction when the real problem is in another direction. So one of the shortages I think that we will be facing is, quite frankly, skepticism. People tend to accept whatever the computer says as truth, especially if you're not in the cybersecurity field, if you're a lawyer or managing things and such. And we need to make sure that the people we teach, or the people we train, the people who are managing this stuff, understand that while the computer can be very, very accurate, you also have to put what it reports into context. How is if you're doing supervised learning, how is the supervision done? Where did you get your data sets? And if you're doing unsupervised learning, Is it possible that the algorithms you're using or the neural nets you're developing can be tricked into reporting things that either aren't there, so that you waste a lot of time looking for them, or reporting that nothing is there when there are things there, so you miss things, or reporting that something is there when really it's something different, and so forth. So while I think AI has great possibilities, I think we also have to look at it very carefully to see whether or not it's it could be posing problems. And that, I think, is also a huge gap that we have. The other gap that we have is the other skill set that's needed is a better understanding of how cybersecurity works within organizations. And this is not just within a particular organization or set of organizations. It's also looking from the outside. For example, one of the areas I've done a lot of work in is what is notoriously misnamed as secure programming. It's really robust programming and secure programming together. And there's a lot of talk about regulation or certification for programmers, which is great. But there's a lot of talk also of if something goes wrong, then the programmer who is certified is legally responsible, like in the way an architect would be for building bridges and such. And that overlooks entirely the ecosystem in which the programmers function. So part of the skill set is understanding that ecosystem better. Again, non-technical, but critical. So we've, as Jeff pointed out, we have a lot of work to do, and it's not going to happen very quickly. And AI is one way to fill the gap, at least in some sense, in some ways. And better training of people who are already in management and positions and working with cybersecurity is another way. One other skill set I should point out is the ability to build and to design and build secure systems. Currently, that was very important at the beginnings of academia. Now it seems to have pretty much gone, well, some people teach it, but much more emphasis is placed on how do you secure existing systems, which is good because if someone came out with a perfectly secure system, assuming that security there were broad enough for all other places, how many people would actually replace their systems? Not many.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Just checking you've not frozen on my screen. Good, okay. Let's pick one of the others. Let's go for Sanjana. We'll call back each of the panelists to answer this question. We won't call back everybody for every question. But Sanjana, what's your view on the skills shortage? What are we short of?
Sure. So, Steve, the way I understand it is that I think the skills shortage manifests in different ways in different types of organizations. Obviously, small, medium businesses, which are short-staffed, you've got one individual carrying out a variety of, IT and cyber-related responsibilities. And so, they wear multiple hats. You look at large organizations where there is kind of specialization or super specialization, that kind of skills shortage manifests slightly differently. But our research has also shown consistently the one skill that comes out as the most sought after skill year after year is cloud computing and cloud security. And obviously, in this current scenario, working from home, distributed workforce, it's no surprise that that's a skill that, cyber practitioners are really seeking to develop. But even within that skill, we found some interesting data points that cyber practitioners who are, let's say, belong to an older demographic are the ones who are seeking to develop their cloud security skills much more than younger workers. And I wonder if it's to do with those who joined the profession 20, 30 years ago, came into it sort of via traditional systems, whereas those who are joining the industry now are coming into it already working on, either hybrid systems or cloud first systems. So it's really interesting that I agree with the audience. There's certainly a shortage of both technical and non-technical skills, but I think the I think the topic is quite nuanced in how it manifests itself in different types of industries and obviously different types of roles.
Thank you very much. And last but not least on this one, Amanda. So, I mean, again, in terms of skills shortage, you might be able to relate this one particularly to, let's say, the CISX skills framework in terms of, are there particular areas there where you think we might be short of practitioners?
Absolutely. And I'd like to actually draw attention to our State of the Profession survey that we issued recently. And there was a question in that which related to which skills are you needing the most within your workplace. And that came up with a resounding analytical skills this year, and it overtook technical, which we've had previously. And another one high on the list is managerial as well. So I think the analytical side is really important. If you come back to the points that Matt and Jeff were making about AI, yes, my gosh, we need to use AI, but my gosh, we've got to understand how we use it. And that analytical aspect is incredibly important. Again, coming back to the survey, the importance of good management and those interpersonal skills is one of the questions that was also focusing on why people leave jobs, why people stay in jobs. And people stay in jobs because of, well, remuneration obviously plays a part, but it's largely about whether they're able to work effectively, they've got the opportunity to develop, and that they feel valued. So the soft skills are very, very important as well. But we have a total skill shortage. So actually, all skills are useful. And if you look at the skills framework, that's where it's very helpful for people to actually look at where their skill strengths lie and see where they want to develop. So it's a broad casting thing with that. And I think everybody else has covered the other points, so I'll be quiet now so we can go on to another question.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda. And I've posted a link in the chat actually for the survey of the profession that you mentioned from CISEC there.
Thank you.
Okay, so another question from me, just to lead us on a little bit. So looking at cybersecurity job vacancies, they're often filled, it seems to me at least, with lists of certifications, qualifications and experience that someone's expected to hold. And that perhaps in itself is creating a bit of a barrier, because it creates this perception in order to qualify at all, you've got to have all of these things. So to what extent might we be creating a skill shortage by asking for things that are perhaps unrealistic for a lot of the potential recruits to hold? And I'll take Sanjana if she's willing to answer that one.
Yes, absolutely. Really interesting question, Steve. So is the requirement for certifications creating a workforce shortage? I would say that certifications, requiring or mandating certifications is definitely creating, well, it's certainly creating I suppose, HR hiring managers who are using certifications to filter out CVs are probably not going to see all of the CVs in front of them if that's what they're using as a filtering tool. And I hope that that's not happening. So I'm against the kind of kitchen sink approach to writing job descriptions where HR departments and hiring managers would not only ask for a whole load of certifications, but will also ask for unicorns, a variety of technical skills, non-technical skills. Basically, everything that we said sort of in response to our previous question is listed as essential and desirable for those candidates. So I think it's not just the certifications, I think it's in how we write our job descriptions is perhaps creating those obstacles that candidates are not able to overcome in the hiring process. I mean, I have to say that I think there needs to be better clarity in the market amongst hiring managers, among HR departments. And this is, where obviously professional organizations like CISEC and UK Cybersecurity can play a very important role, that certifications are important, but they're important perhaps for certain roles and certain types of specialisms. Whether cybersecurity certifications are in and of themselves creating a shortage, I would contest that. And I would say it's the broader approach to hiring that is perhaps creating a shortage.
Thank you very much. That's a fair point. Now, leading on from the issue of certification, I actually got a question in the chat, which I will, or in the Q&A bit, rather, I should say, which has been posed by a member of the audience. I'll pose the question to Matt, and you'll see why as I read it out. So, do universities encourage their students to pursue certifications after their graduation? And if not, do you feel they should? So, Matt, what's your views on that one?
Okay, first off, it varies among universities. Some do encourage them to pursue certifications. Others simply let it be. I don't know of any university that would say, no, you don't want a certification. Now, should they? There are a lot of factors to be considered. The glib answer is yes, but there are a lot of factors that have to be considered. First of all, which certification is right for what the person is going to be doing? Second is the expense. Students who graduate often are, at least in the United States, in debt. In other places, they're just beginning, so they don't have a lot of money. And many of the certifications cost quite a bit of money and also quite a bit of time. And so that has to be factored in as well. So the universities who don't encourage it often don't do so because of those other reasons. I'll leave it. Oh, the other thing too is some universities will try to get exercises from certification places and integrate those into the curriculum. So when the student comes out, they don't have the certification. They still have to do the coursework that the certifying authority requires, but they'll at least have a leg up and understand a bit more about what's involved. And on that note, I'll be quiet.
No, thank you very much, Matt. That's, again, very helpful response there, I think. And again, as you say, I fully agree, it's going to vary according to the institution as to exactly how they will promote things and make use of it. But certainly, it should be one of the things that they, at the very least, make people aware of. So I think time for a second poll, just to make sure we've got a number of people that say attendees on the system. Let's see how many are paying attention to the opportunity to do another poll question. So our poll question this time, if Demetria can launch it off for us. Thinking from the perspective of being in an organization. Now, you might be in a university, so you can think what your university has, or you might be in an organization more generally where you're taking responsibility for this. But either, or in whatever way you interpret the question, are you confident that your organization has the skills to protect itself, either based on what you directly know or what you surmise from what you see? So your level of confidence, I won't read them all out, but you can see there's varying levels of confidence that you can express. So let's see how confident you are.
We're a bit more than halfway with answers. So
Come on, the rest of you who've not voted or put an opinion. You can have a level of confidence. We won't hold you to it, but just give us a response. Makes the percentages look more interesting when we come through. Okay, that gave people a bit more of a chance. Did anyone else respond there, Demetria?
No, I think we're stuck at 11.
People. All right, let's see what those who did vote said. Okay, so we're sort of around the middle ground, aren't we? So again, not sure. Can everybody see this, Demetria, or is it just me?
Yep, everyone can see it.
Everyone can see it. So I don't need to read it all out. So you can see that we're either mostly confident or somewhat confident. So luckily there's only a small proportion not confident at all or not very confident. But yeah, we're not exactly striding out there with massive confidence overall. So again, perhaps suggested that there's more we can do here. So let's move on with some questions. I can see we've got another one in the Q&A from the audience, but I'll ask another one first, and then we'll give other audience members a chance to put things in as well, and I can group them together. So a question for Amanda, I think I'm going to ask this one too. So how can an employer understand the skills that they need? How can they recognize them amongst potential applicants? So we're talking about with what Sanjana was saying before about HR potentially filtering applicants and things like that. But if it gets in front of somebody who's suitably informed to know what they're looking for, how can they recognize things amongst the applications they've received?
Right. Well, I think that coming back to the point that we need to do quite a lot to help employers to understand what good looks like is important, because I think that one of the problems we've got at the moment is that people that are hiring don't necessarily understand what they're hiring, so that's difficult. But if they're looking at job applications, what you would want to be seeing is that somebody's invested in their career development. So you'd expect to see qualifications and certifications that relate to the particular area. I'm like Sanjana, completely against these unicorn job descriptions because they actually stop good people applying, because they think, I can't do all of that. I can't walk on water. I can't sort of commune with the angels and all of those sort of things. So there's certainly an element of putting together a realistic job description, but it's looking at people holistically. But I'd actually rather that people developed teams themselves. And that's something that we've been working on quite a lot, which we've developed a capability development methodology, which gets organizations to think about what sort of team do they need, what have they got already with talent, and where do they need to backfill that? Because there's a lot of opportunity to actually train people up within your organization already to actually fulfill that. And then it comes back to the point I made earlier about people feeling valued, being able to develop and stay with you. And it's a lot cheaper than going and spending 20% of the salary on recruitment. So those are probably my very, very brief takeaways on that.
Thank you very much. Let's see now, I'm debating where to go. Right, so question for Jeff, I think. Are we doing enough to promote the profession itself and encourage people into it? And actually, is it an attractive profession to encourage people into? Jeff, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it is an attractive one. Obviously, I've spent 1,000 years in it and can't imagine wanting to do anything else. I do say somewhat facetiously that cybersecurity is a bit of an acquired taste. Not everyone acquires that taste, but for those who do, it's quite sticky. You want to stay in it. I'm finding that for instance, in the course that I teach at NC State, what I try to do is I figure the other instructors are already doing the technical training, the details that need to be there that, again, I consider to be the table stakes. And what I'm trying to focus on in my class is about the thought processes that need to go around this. I call it secure thinking, with the notion that we need to look at things in a critical way, that we need to be able to look at systems once they've been designed and not envision the normal architect thinks, how will the system work? And a security architect looks at it and thinks, how will it fail? We have to think about how it could fail for accidental reasons, or how it could fail because there's a determined adversary trying to make it fail. So you have to understand, to me, if you like hard problems, cybersecurity is it, because you have to not only know how the system is supposed to work, but then you have to envision all these failure paths that might be there as well. And if you put it as an intellectual challenge like that, I think you're going to start drawing some of the people that you really want into this. And I'll comment also just briefly on the certification question that came up earlier, that I do think we have to be careful that it's not a barrier to entry, but I feel like for entry-level positions, we probably shouldn't be expecting, for instance, a CISSP. Someone will not, that's the chicken and the egg thing, which comes first? Do you get the experience or do you get the job? Well, you can't get the job without the experience. So I think what happens is for entry-level positions, we need to not expect the highest level of certification, but for senior level positions, I think we absolutely should expect those things. And I think it's perfectly reasonable if I'm going to hire someone into a senior level cybersecurity job that they have things like CISSP and things of that sort. But then again, those things are the necessary but not sufficient conditions that have to be met. Then I want to know, like I said earlier, can they communicate? Can they, advocate for their ideas? Can they present those? Because in a company, what happens is you could have the best idea, but if you don't know how to present it or who to go to it with, how to stand up on a table and stamp your feet if you have to get the right attention. If you don't have those skills, you're going to languish off in a corner. So, and we don't have certifications that can point to that. But those are the kind of soft skills that I think are becoming increasingly important in this space. And we need to motivate from the student level all the way through the senior technical professional levels that they develop those skills.
Absolutely agree. So, yeah, I mean, I think the point that you made, that a lot of these things that we see are just the entry point. They're the baseline that we want somebody to have, and you've got to have those in order to have something to build upon is very fair, actually. And that recognition, and we'll come back to it actually, about entry points, the fact that you should expect people to have different things depending on where they're coming in and how they're coming into the profession as well. Just returning though to that point about, well, encouraging people into the profession, the type of people we're encouraging. I've got a question I'll pose to Sanjana actually around, we want cybersecurity as a profession to be representative of wider society, etc. But I think there's various survey results and things at the moment that would suggest that it's not as representative as it could be. So in what ways can employers, hiring managers, etc., achieve a better balance in terms of their hires, including, for example, more women and more generally greater diversity within their organization? So Sanjana, I'm going to throw that one at you.
Thank you, Steve. And yes, you have identified a really important challenge for the profession, given that, well, our estimate is, about 25% of the workforce is made up of women. I think that's there's a huge opportunity there to attract more women to the profession, but also attract individuals from other underrepresented groups. And I think some of the suggestions that have already been discussed on this panel, such as writing more effective job descriptions, looking at, I think it was Matt or Jeff who talked about complementary skills. And so thinking about, where could individuals who already have, important analytical skills that they're already utilizing in certain functions, can they be attracted to cybersecurity? So I think there's obviously a piece around hiring, but I think there's also a piece around what happens when cybersecurity practitioners join the industry. So we've found that, for example, there might be a steady sort of flow of women into the profession, but there are very few women represented at, senior cyber roles. And so why does that happen? Sort of getting under the skin of that, why is the profession accepting, but then maybe, not doing enough to support and mentor these individuals? I think so. There's a hiring piece, there's a mentoring piece. And then I think just making the sector generally more attractive and interesting to larger sections of the population. We did some research last year when we spoke to people about what they think about the profession, and it was really encouraging to find out that nearly 3/4 of the people we spoke to had a very high regard for the profession. They considered it to be comprised of smart individuals who do good for society. But when you ask them if it's a career path for them, the answer is a resounding no. And I think for the profession to become more diverse, inclusive, representative of different groups of different sections of the population, it's that we really need to change.
Absolutely. No, I think there's certainly more we can do and more we should be doing to increase the diversity, certainly. got a couple of questions that I'm now going to come to from the chat, and I'm going to pose the first one to Matt, I think, so just to prepare you. So the context for this, that in some industries we're planning our thoughts for the next 30 to 50 years. Some people are going to work in those areas who consequently aren't even born yet. So do you think we in cybersecurity, information security, are prepared to teach people, to give them competencies to tackle problems that we haven't yet found? So how are we preparing people for the unknown, Matt? As an academic, you've got a view, I'm sure.
Of course. This is where academic education comes in, because when you learn principles, you learn ideas, you learn adversarial thinking, things like that, then even though you may not have studied a particular system that will be developed in 40 years, you have the right mindset to come in and basically say, what could go wrong? Here's what the system's supposed to do. Does it block anything that it's not? Does it block anything else? Does it only do what it's supposed to do, and so forth? The key point here is that you have to understand how things work and how to predict, or rather, how to work with things that you've never seen before. And that's where academic education, where you learn ideas, concepts, and how to apply them in different situations, comes into play. So the short answer is, I think, yes, we are prepared to do that. It gets very little press, but that's the nature of academic education.
Yeah, and I think it's exactly as you said, it's going back to that fact that academia is preparing you for a way of thinking, and so in that context, you should be prepared to encounter and deal with things that haven't explicitly been spelled out in advance. So, okay, thank you for that one, Matt. I've got another question now. I'm going to throw this one at Sanjana, actually, I think. And maybe also to Amanda as well, but certainly Sanjana, first of all. Is there too much confusion in the marketplace? There's many certifications as well as many different frameworks for security. The question says, no wonder HR people throw all the certs at a job description. So what do we think of that? Is there too much confusion in the marketplace? Sanjana.
Yes. So I think definitely the answer is that there are brilliant resources out there. And there are a range of really meaningful certifications, but how they all fit together is not necessarily apparent, to most stakeholders in the ecosystem. And so I think that there is definitely a real gap in the market, or there's a need in the market to respond to this challenge of clarifying pathways into cybersecurity, pathways through cybersecurity, and also where do all these different knowledge, skills, frameworks and certifications, kind of fall along those pathways. So there's certainly definitely need for mapping, and I'm sure perhaps, there are various initiatives on the go in different countries around the world, but certainly in the UK, we've got the UK Cybersecurity Council, which is in the process of creating a career framework and a qualification framework, which will help, as Amanda mentioned in her introductory presentation, to demystify the profession. So certainly I do empathize with people's confusion, and I do empathize that there is so much, it's all brilliant stuff, but people don't necessarily understand how the different pieces of the puzzle fall into place. But Amanda, over to you.
Thank you, Sanjana, and I completely agree with you about it's quite confusing. There's a lot of certifications out there, and I think this is somewhere where a professional body can actually help a lot, because where we come from, as we said earlier, that we're completely agnostic about qualifications and certifications that people have, but the value of being independently assessed by a professional body through peer review on a competency-based system means that employers don't have to look for all of the certifications out there. If somebody's being independently assessed through peer review by a professional body, it shows that they can do the role and they've got the experience in the areas that they've been accredited against. So I think there's a lot of work that we need to do on simplifying the routes, and there's work being done by ourselves and the UK Cyber Council as well. But it's a movable feast, so it's always going to be hard to keep up with it. And it's really finding the right certifications for you at the right stage of your career, and also appreciating that they will atrophy over a period of time as your career takes different courses.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Now, folks, we are coming to our third and final poll. So now is your chance to prove that you are able to answer a poll and see if we can get the full participation from the group. So, Demetria, can we have poll number 3, please? And it's not a theme that we've actually explored within the discussion to any great extent here. So, still interesting to get a response from you as an audience. Is there a need for a more formal regulation or licensing of cybersecurity as a profession? So to what extent do you agree or disagree with this? So yes, practitioners should have a license to practice, like accountants or doctors or other licensed professions. Not having licensing, but a formal recognition of their qualifications and experience, and maybe some professional body certification, for example, chartered status, whatever we want to call it. Or no, nothing's needed beyond existing qualifications and certifications. So 3 options, please choose one of them.
We're yet again.
Make sure if we got any responses.
Yeah, we're just over half again. Maybe I'll give it a couple more seconds, and if we don't have any more responses, I'll
5
end it.
seconds for the rest of you to reply.
Would it help if I
5.
told everyone the correct answer?
No, don't lead them. That would be.
Oh, okay. All right.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're off. What have we got as results? Okay, interesting. So, very small proportion saying yes, we should have an actual license to practice. Recognition being just slightly the most popular, and nothing beyond the existing qualifications and certifications getting just slightly less. So certainly not going any significantly more formal than we've already got, but having some perhaps means to look beyond the bodies that are providing the qualifications and certifications. Some overarching thing to recognize qualifications and experience could be useful. All right, thank you folks for that one. And we're now moving into, well, just the final moment of the panel, based on the time we've got available. So I'm going to just go round the panel once more to get a very quick answer to a question. And I always do this with panels. I pretend that I've got a magic wand. I'll show it very quickly, and there it was. So I've got this magic wand, and it's a chance to change one thing that we've been talking about. So what would you do with my magic wand, panel members? About 30 seconds or less for your answer, and we'll start with Jeff.
Well, the first thing I would do is figure out how to use the mute button. Second thing then would be I think a lot of companies have done a good job with this, but many have not. And that is the recognition that certain IT skills are in more demand than others, and therefore salaries and compensation need to be in line with that. Sometimes larger companies will tend to group all of their IT employees together and therefore put them in the same HR plan. And as a result, they end up losing very skilled people because other organizations are willing to pay more for the ones that are in demand, like cybersecurity in particular. So that would be one of the first things that I would do, just thinking strictly from a corporate industry side, is that recognition of more granularity in compensation based upon demand.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. Matt.
I would, if I could wave my magic wand, I'd focus much more on building systems with assurance that satisfy both security policies or policy components, and also look more at adversarial thinking. And the idea there would be to pull in the non-technical and make them just as important as the technical factors, and basically vary it depending upon the educational goals of the person involved.
Okay, thank you very much. Sanjana.
So Steve, I would introduce cyber education at younger ages and make it particularly integrated into secondary school when students start to gain more exposure to computer science. And so that when it comes to choosing career options, cyber is one of the many natural options being considered by these individuals, rather than as something which is beyond their scope and out of reach.
Okay, thank you. And the reason we're using a magic wand rather than a genie is that we get more than 3 wishes, so we can get out to Amanda. So you're not going to get left out. Amanda, what would you do?
Well, my magic wand would be to tap all of the employers on the shoulder to say, think laterally, bring more people into security. Don't go down the experienced hire route. Look within your organization. You've got loads of security champions there that can actually come in and fix the problem. Building on Matt and Sanjana's point about not being technical necessarily, you know, that we just bring lots and lots of people in. Take on apprentices, please take on apprentices, because it's growing that talent for the future that I would like to see, and people having the confidence to do it.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our time slot. So if I had a magic wand, I'd just give us more time to actually continue the discussion, because there's quite a number of points that we've not had a chance to explore more fully. And it is a theme, actually, there's sort of the level of clarity that we can bring to it, something that IFIP and TC11 are hoping to explore more fully as we go forward. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance. Panel members, thank you very much indeed for your attendance and participation, all the thoughts that you've offered us, and I hope you've all found it interesting. Have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Bye. Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh no. I'll just say one more thing for anyone who's maybe still there, but thank you, Steve, and thank you for your lovely moderation, and on behalf of the German Informatics Society and on behalf of the IFIP Events Coordination Committee, thank you so much to our panelists and our organizers, and thanks to all of our participants today. You can see a recording of this talk and learn more about upcoming events at ifip.org/Jubilee60, and also make sure you follow IFIP on Twitter and LinkedIn so you don't miss the exciting events and activities we have planned. So yeah, again, thank you so much, and have a lovely rest of your day, whatever you have left, depending on what time zone you're in. Bye.
Bye-bye.